So for those of you who, I don't know if you can see me or just hear me, but this is Corey Redderkop. I'm the Director of Policy and Stakeholder Relations at the Burnaby Board of Trade. So pleased to have people joining us from across our business community today for this session. So hopefully we're really looking forward to it, because I think the next, during this whole crisis, it was a little bit of the first stage was what's going on. The next stage was how am I going to get through this? And now it's how do I reopen? What's the future look like? So it's really important to have this information around what next week, next month is going to look like, and how businesses can prepare for that. So I'm going to pass this over to our President and CEO, Paul Holden, for a few opening comments, and then we'll introduce and welcome our guest speakers today. Paul?
Thanks, Corey, and welcome to everybody. I can see we've still got some participants trickling in. We've got a good number of people taking part in this today. It's, as Corey said, the first phase of all of this was just what can we do to provide resources to business, and now we're looking to move into the how do we get businesses back up and running again. I'm looking at the list of participants, a lot of familiar names there, but I see some people that maybe are a little bit new to us as an organisation. So just for the benefit of those folks, we are the Burnaby Board of Trade, the Chamber of Commerce for the City of Burnaby. And it's our role, really, we describe our role in a fashion as a 3C organisation, which means we're a catalyst for business and economic development, which means a big part of our role is working with businesses and with the city to ensure they have the resources and tools available to be able to grow their business and to be able to attract new businesses into the city. We're a convener of businesses and leaders of business. So that's where usually you'd find the 60 or so events that we do a year. We're not obviously in that position right now, but 60 or so events where we're bringing people together in order to learn from each other and to share best practices and to do business together. And a champion for business is the last of the C's, and that's the area that we've been perhaps more active than ever in this last 8 to 10 weeks, where on a daily basis we've been dealing with all levels of government, really advocating in the best interests of business through this really difficult time. So that's our role. We have about 1,100 members, which is anything from individual business operators right the way through to the larger organizations like TELUS, Electronic Arts, Pacific Blue Cross, etc. And across every sector you could possibly imagine. So a very, very broad spread. So if you're not familiar with us and you'd like to know more, just contact one of us and we can give you more information. I'd just like to thank, as we always do at the start of all of our events, our annual partners. We have some fantastic organizations, and I think you can see them on the screen now, who support us throughout the year. And at the platinum level, I'd like to acknowledge the Burnaby Now and the BCIT School of Business and Media. We have at the gold level, Fortis BC, Pacific Blue Cross, Simon Fraser University, Electronic Arts, ABC Recycling, and Douglas College. And then at the silver level, we have Alexander College, Trans Mountain, Appia Development, Port of Vancouver, and Scotiabank. So I'd like to thank those organisations. They support us throughout the year and do some really important work to help us do the work that we do that I mentioned at the beginning. So today what we're here to do is connect with our friends from the BC Restaurant and Food Services Association, which is one of the leading industry associations here in the province. And obviously the industry they represent is such a significant industry in terms of not just the economic benefits that it brings to the province, the amount of people that it employs in the province, but there's probably not one of us that doesn't from time to time use the facilities of their members and is looking forward very much to continue to do so and getting back to doing so. So a really high profile organisation that's done some fantastic work during this whole crisis on looking at what they can do to get their industry back up and running. So I'm happy to welcome today. We have two representatives from that organisation with us today. We have Ian Tostenson, who's the president and CEO of the association, and we have Samantha Schofield, who's the program manager from the BC Restaurant and Food Services Association. So what's going to happen first of all is Ian and Samantha are going to share their presentation and their thoughts on how their industry is reopening, and best practices and tips, etc. And then at the end of that, we'll have whatever time we have left for Q&A. So Ian and Samantha, thanks very much for joining us today, and over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome everyone. We really appreciate the opportunity to do this. Industry is pervasive. This has been a really difficult problem. To put it in context, in British Columbia, there's 15,000 restaurants, 190,000 people that work in the industry. 90,000 of the 190 are between the ages of 15 and 24. Probably 180,000 people are unemployed right now because the industry was shut down and takeout and delivery was the only option. And so what we decided to do as an organization, I think a couple of things we want to sort of impart to the membership and the Board of Trade is the actions that we took that were quite a bit different than other organizations. And the work that Samantha's done that I think I have no hesitation to even say it's probably world-class information that she put together to help reopen restaurants. And this 15 or $14 billion industry is about to start up on the 19th of next week. So not all restaurants will be open, but we're going to talk about some of the things that were apparent in the opening plan. But what drove this really for us, when this happened, we decided, number one, as an organization, Paul, I appreciate what you said about the Board of Trade, is that we needed to be at the forefront and take leadership on information, at least anyways. Some of the very first questions we got from restaurants when this happened was, and this is so much about our industry, people would say, what do I do with my staff? How do I take care of my staff? It wasn't about how do I take care of me, it was the staff. And so CERB came in, that helped. The wage subsidy program helped. The rent program sucks. I was just talking to Corey about that. We hope there's going to be some changes. We're working with that as well. But about 4 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago, Dr. Henry said, I'm really interested to hear what the restaurant sector has to say about reopening. And Samantha went out and was able to garner what we could find best practices to the extent that any other place in the universe has ever had to do this before. But we put together a document on the Monday. We got it out to a group of 60 businesses, restaurant leaders in the province on Tuesday night. We had our first meeting on Wednesday. We had our next meeting on the Friday. We had one more meeting on the Tuesday. We fine-tuned the document and we got it into the Premier's office last week. I think it was last week. Was it last week?
2 weeks ago.
And we did it in 9 days. We took the leadership, we brought the industry together, and we this document that Sam's going to go through is the blueprint that has been used by now WorkSafe, who are coming out with their guidelines today. And Sam will address that. But this process for us was amazing. The mere fact that we took this direction, it ended up with a phone call from the Premier thanking us for doing that. And actually yesterday, and I was totally honored by this, from the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, thanking us for doing this proactive work for the economy and how important it is. And we were talking about leadership, and leadership in times of crisis, it's all about communication and inspiration and innovation and just taking control. And I said to the Lieutenant Governor yesterday, her inspirational message to us and to me inspires our crew to just keep going, and also the industry at large. And I think what also has happened, then I'll turn it to Sam here. In the last 3 or 4 days, there's been some significant announcements for our industry. Number one is we wrote every municipality in the province with our partners, Able BC and the Wine Institute and the Craft Brewers Guild, asking every mayor and council to take a very proactive and quick stand on expanding patio space to deal with the restrictive nature of how restaurants open in terms of, and we've got overwhelming support for that from municipalities. You can read about it in the paper today, and it's almost becoming a competition between municipalities as to who can do that better and utilizing space. We also heard yesterday the provincial government wants to fast track approvals on liquor licenses and patios. So I really encourage Burnaby to take that innovative approach, and Kelowna is going to probably shut down streets and just, really put a lot into this. The second thing was a significant announcement because of, I think the work that we've been doing with government. around wholesale pricing for restaurants. So in time, and I think in very short time, restaurants will be able to buy at a wholesale price for their liquor versus the retail price they pay right now, which again will help with the economic crisis considerably for restaurants. And the other thing that happened was way back when, at the beginning of this, we ourselves and Able BC, who handles pubs and private liquor stores, went to the government on a Friday afternoon and said, we'd like to consider the delivery of liquor when people have their food delivered at home through the third-party delivery companies like Skip the Dishes and Uber Eats, etc. And we think that liquor delivery would be great, and they approved that in 2.5 days. That would normally take like 2 decades to approve something like that. So working proactively, coming to government with solutions, working the networks are all very important. I think a lot of that is because the things we're getting right now is because the government has a high level of trust with us. But it all started with what I'll turn over to Sam now on the great work that she's done and the blueprint that she put together to provide this backbone for the government to help us. So Sam, over to you.
Right, so you probably can see my screen right now. So we went through a process of that Ian talked about of working with operators across our industry. And it was very fast in terms of the timeline, but as with everything with COVID-19, we're not in control of 90% of what's happening, and we're not in control of 90% of the timeline either. So what we are trying to do is to try and focus the 10% we have some small control over and really be thoughtful and careful about the recommendations that we're making. And how do we change a situation that we don't have a lot of control of? And the thing that we've really thought about as the most important thing is the question of building public trust and consumer confidence. And the way that we looked at this exercise was a way of saying, as an industry, and we had representatives of chains and independents and licensed and unlicensed restaurants, what can we do as operators, and that's in our control, to change, to build the question of consumer confidence and build the question of staff confidence? Of course, our staff is our #1 resource. And so if our staff are not confident to come back to work, or they feel that the environment is not safe, we won't be able to reopen, and we won't be able to reopen at the level that we want to reopen at. So we took 3 guiding principles, and ours are P's, not C's. One is that we want everyone to be prepared. So if you're going to open, make sure that you have all of your preparation done, that you've done education, that you've spoken honestly and openly with your staff. We want to make sure that everything we're doing is based around processes that are clear and repeatable and consistent, and that we also use all of our partners across the industry to make sure that we have collaboration on actually getting these best practices implemented across business. So we did have a huge number of individuals. We also had organizations representative, the craft brewers that Ian mentioned, Canadian Culinary Federation and the Chef's Table Society, the Chinese Restaurant Association, the Comox Valley Restaurant Committee, Gordon Food Service and Cisco, who deliver restaurant food, Dennis Green, who is with the Industry Tourism Authority, so he does a lot of training of individuals and setting up the training programs. And then we had Neil Wiles from the Vancouver BIA Partnership, who is working on the revitalization group. So we had a really strong section of business associations involved with us as well on really short notice, just so that we could actually see this from as many sides as we could. I'm going to talk about this in sort of more general terms than going specifically through it, because at this point, can I enlarge my screen? Yes, I can enlarge my screen. Is that better? I see James is commenting. James, I'm going to blow it right up. So if you guys want to put in the chat if you're happy with that. And do also put in the chat any questions that you have. And I can try and address them as I go along.
Well, are we able to share this blueprint after the meeting?
Of course. Yeah, it's on our website, and you can send it out directly.
Yeah, so we'll send it out to everybody. So if we move too fast or you miss something, we'll give you a copy of this at the end. Yeah.
So in terms of the blueprint is not going to be exactly what WorkSafe decides they want us to do. So the way that we're looking at it is that WorkSafe will be setting the minimum levels standard, and what we hope that our document will do, and we will evolve this document once we get the wording from WorkSafe, will be that this will be focused on ways that you can execute or exceed the expectations set by WorkSafe. So some of these ideas will be incremental and some of them will be reaching that minimum level, but we really suggest that if we're going to do this and we're going to build that public trust and build our staff confidence, that exceeding all expectations is going to be the way that we get to the next level and we really go back to thriving. So our 4 goals were, 1, to show both diners and employees that we are adopting new measures that maximize public safety and increase public confidence. Wanted to create a checklist that you guys could work off of to understand what needs to get done. To work on best practices for health and safety, and also to look at what are we going to do now and where will we be in 4 weeks and where will we be in 8 weeks, because we know that the road to recovery with COVID-19 will be long as we wait to get to that point where we either have herd immunity or a vaccine. And the timeline seems to be getting longer and longer. But I wasn't actually sure that March wasn't 16 weeks all by itself. So I think we're all in that. Time is very unusual now. So we have different phases for the program. And the first phase is, of course, the one where there is the most restrictions. And then we hope that there'll be some easing, and then we'll be able to increase capacities, and we'll be able to reduce the distance between chairs, and then we'll go into sort of what we will call the new normal. So the core message for us is around staff health and safety. We really want everybody to focus on your staff. If your staff are your marketing department, in that if your staff feel comfortable coming to work and that you are looking after their best interests, they're going to share with their friends and their family that they should come to your business and support your business. If your staff are afraid to come to work and they're not confident, then you're going to turn it around, and at the same time, they're going to be the one that says, oh, I wouldn't go there. I don't feel comfortable going there. You shouldn't either. So for us, the very front of this issue is tackling the confidence of our staff. So the first thing we want people to do, and I think a couple of these things are things you really should look at doing. Of course, it's all optional until we see what happens with WorkSafe, but do really think about these health and safety ones for staff, because they're the linchpin to making all of this work. We're going to need to make sure that our staff agree not to come to work. How we recommend if they're sick. So what we recommend with that is that you create a contract addendum, and we will have a sample that you can download from our website, and we can share it with Corey and the team there as well, where it says, I will not come to work if I'm sick, and then they sign that and it becomes an addendum to their employment contract, just as a reminder that this is what they have agreed to. We also want to make sure that you have a medical resource list posted in your staff room, or if you have a staff Facebook page, make sure that people have access to information around where they can get the right information on COVID, the symptoms, if they're having mental health challenges. And we also really want to focus on this one to give your staff bullying resources. One of the tragic side effects I find of COVID-19 is that there's a lot of the call-out culture and social media being used to bully people, and mixed messaging around what social distancing looks like. And people feel like they have a right to call people out on their behavior in public places. And it can be very intimidating. So we want to make sure that we're letting people know how to handle these kinds of situations, and being able to provide some resources around bullying and where to look for that information, really helpful. In terms of every business that has more than 20 staff by WorkSafe regulations has to have a joint health and safety committee. So if you have that already, or if you should be looking at doing that, we do recommend that you make sure everybody knows who the COVID-19 point person is in your business, who can help answer questions and help offer training and support to people who are looking for figuring out how to handle unique situations that come up with COVID-19. We have asked the Ministry of Health to support us in having a policy that says if someone comes to a restaurant that has signs of COVID-19, that we can decline that service. This is essential for all businesses across all ministries. And so it definitely is something that the ministry is looking at, is how do we remind, if we're telling our staff they can't come to work sick, how do we make sure that customers have that same message? We recommend that you have your staff do a pre-shift health check. And so one of the things that we suggested, and this is another one that's optional, but something you may want to think about how you want to do it in your business. We think the temperature checks is an easy one. It's not invasive. It sort of gives you a baseline of whether somebody is got an elevated temperature or not. It's a precursor to COVID. It's not necessarily one of the only signs of COVID, but it's something that you could do to check to make sure that you're working in that direction of maintaining that health baseline. I see Andrew's question. I'll get through these last couple of points in this section, and then I'll answer them. So we also think you need to look at separating space, so that if you have open kitchens, you make sure that you have high enough barriers between your open kitchen staff and your customers. Again, this is about building the trust between not just for the customers, but for the staff that are working back behind an open kitchen, that they are protected. One great idea that we had somebody give us for this is that they actually hung plexiglass from the ceiling so that their bar is being turned into like a diner takeout window, so that the plexiglass comes down and then there's a 1 foot or 18-inch gap between the glass that's hanging down and the bar at the bottom, so they can pass through things that way, and reducing the exposure of the people on the kitchen side. So it's a really interesting way of doing it, but also less damage to your physical premises and no damage to your bar. So we also want you to make sure that when you're bringing in deliveries, that you actually track those, and when people are coming and going from your facility, if they are making deliveries, or if they're coming to fix something, or if they're coming to sell you something. And if you have somebody who becomes your point person for deliveries, that person should be wearing gloves and masks when they're getting deliveries. This is one of the only positions that we have definitely said we recommend the masks and gloves, because they are engaging with things. They have been sitting somewhere else. They're coming into your facility, and they're opening them up, so there's more opportunity for germs to spread. We want to make sure that when you're setting up your tables, and this immediately after reopening period, you don't have ketchups and condiments and table cards and marking materials, any of those things, billfolds, candles, all on the table, because it just adds an extra layer of cleaning. So put those to the side, wipe them, and then bring them back to people if they need them, instead of having them on the table. It's a sign of cleanliness to have them not there. And then the last one is, of course, the increased use of sanitizing stations, and we are working on getting some of those sourced. Yes, Andrew, the eternal question of staff and sick leave. So we actually wrote a letter to the Premier's office 2 days ago and sent it in. John Horgan has been very vocal that we need to have paid sick leave for individuals, and that he believes that it needs to be something that the government is helping with in this new normal period. Because as he said, if he's come to work sick, probably everyone else has as well. So we want to be able to, we have asked the government, we've offered our support to government. They are lobbying the federal government to build in a sick leave policy that's paid for by government. And this is really an essential piece of the next part of our discussions, because as you said in your comment here, if we don't have a way to pay them to stay home sick, how do we know that they're not taking Sudafed and hiding their symptoms? So what we want to make sure is that we have this next level of the plan sorted out, and we have advocated at the provincial level, and we will continue to advocate this as this volume of conversation will start to get louder, because it hasn't been that big of an issue yet, but it's definitely something that's going to be coming up going forward. Anybody else have any questions on that section of employee health and safety? All right, I'll go into the next thing. These are really quick ones that I can talk to you quite quickly about is the heightened awareness around cleaning and sanitation. The thing that we have to do here, I think that's most important, is not necessarily change what you are already doing as much as increase the awareness of what you do and how you do it. So we all know that in the kitchen, people are washing their hands constantly while they're making food. But were they spending the 20 seconds that really and doing all the 7 steps? We probably were skipping a step because we just didn't remember, or it wasn't as top of mind that it had to be the 20 seconds. So what we want you to do with this one is definitely start putting some cues around your kitchen, cues around your bathroom of reminders of what the proper protocols are for hand washing, cleaning and sanitation, making sure all of your cleaning products are actually on the approved Health Canada or British Columbia Ministry of Health website list. You can make your own quat with bleach and water. Make sure you're doing the right percentages. This is really important. Every night now, we're going to have a little bit more deep cleaning at the end of shift. Make sure you write down exactly what that procedure is that people are following. Kitchen sanitation, one of the things that we found is that Quat Spray and Viper, when you spray them on the surfaces, they have to sit on the surface for 30 seconds before they're actually cleaning properly. So we want to remind people of things like that. And then enhanced protocols for dirty dishes are really important. What we would like to think, you guys to think about is separating the serving job with the clearing job so that the person who is clearing can actually wear gloves and a mask, because that is the time where they will be engaging with the spit or saliva, and that is the place that there is more chance of transference. So having those gloves, having the mask on for just those protocols, go straight into the back of the house and put them in the dishwashing area. And then the other thing is that when people are in the kitchen doing the prep work, we do think it might be helpful to have, while you're prepping the kitchen, people are prepping, and the clearer comes and takes away the dirty stuff from the kitchen area so that the kitchen person isn't going back and forth to the dish pit. Ronald, that's a separate thing, that it's not one kind of fever, it's only one kind of fever suppressant that they were talking about, but some of those drugs don't mask fever, they mask, that would be masking runny nose or things like that. So so for this section, really, you guys, the key piece is to be very repeatable, to be very transparent. We had a conversation with chefs who are looking at back of house procedures, and one of the things that they said was that they found that just by setting a timer every 30 minutes to do the hand washing reminded them that they were in the time of COVID. Because once they got everybody back in the kitchen and everybody is good friends and they've worked together for many years and they're feeling really like they're finally back to work and they're feeling enthusiastic about being at work and they love their friends, they were getting a little close and they were still going back to their regular everyday processes. And by having that timer in their kitchen, it just reminded them, oh, okay, we have to step that one step back. We have to do one more hand washing. So some of these things are more designed to be reminders to us, because although we have outstanding practices, we do have 10 years or 20 years or 5 years experience, and those guys doing things a certain way, and we need to start thinking in a new way, especially while we wait for this new normal to get there. So obviously physical distancing measures are the next piece of the puzzle. And so we want to talk about, we know that the measurement the government is going to be talking about is 6 feet between tables. We had originally asked for 50% capacity. Why we asked for that was that was better than most other jurisdictions. Lots of cases were 25%, Texas was 30%, Florida I think was 25%, so we wanted to say, please don't do less than 50. So this is something that we don't have any say over. So we're waiting to hear exactly what WorkSafe is going to mandate. We do know we had asked for groups of 10, and they have said groups of 6 will be the most that there will be allowed. Just about every single jurisdiction has closed buffets and salad bar service for the initial reopening phase. So do be warned that that is something that's going to happen. And if they do reopen them, my guess is it will be with staff help because nobody wants to share tongs and things like that. So if you have a buffet or a salad bar, start thinking about how you can do that differently. There's definitely a lot of interest in having the floor decals that mark the 6 feet apart, especially for waiting areas. And one of the waiting areas we definitely want you to think about is the cache, any outside space where you're making people wait, but also outside the ladies' washroom, so that people are reminded to wait in a spacing way for the bathroom situation. Everyone's going to be required to post physical distancing signage. I think that this is going to be sort of standard for everything. We do want to remind you that in this time, you want to make sure that your guests are waiting outside to come into your restaurant. So if they don't have a table right away, so you may want to collect cell phone numbers and text them when their table is ready, so they can wait in the car, or have a waiting area outside. And again, for this bar or counter service, because we're going to have less people in our restaurants, you may want to think about how you can use your bar in a different way to help you reduce the number of touch points, so that the kitchen brings it out to the bar, the staff get it from the bar. Think about different ways that you can use this area. If you do only have a counter that you serve from, where people sit by themselves, make sure you can either close every other chair so that there is a space between the people that are seated, or that you, when the seats can move, if it's 2 people together, then you create the space by removing a chair for the next group that sits at the bar. Just 2 quick things, and then I will look at just some specific issues around server training and onboarding our servers, because we definitely have a big challenge getting people to come back to work and build their confidence. So the 2 last things that we asked for in terms of support from government are, we asked for help with guest education, because I think it's really important that guests understand what the expectations are and that they understand what parameters we're operating under. And then we also asked for help in terms of training and support, so that if you guys have questions, you have people that you can ask, and that we can filter those back up to WorkSafe, and that we are getting best practices answers, and also that you can go to a website and say, okay, here are all the tools, and this is how we can share them. So we definitely have asked for support in terms of making sure that the government is part of a guest education and consumer confidence campaign, and that we're all working towards common goals of making sure that we're training people and giving them the tools to feel confident. So things like sample floor plan, examples of physical distancing, making sure that we're giving people those videos that show them how to properly wash their hands, and sort of look at what a restaurant protocol that would look different looks like. So I'm just going to stop sharing this one screen for you guys right now and move to a different one. So don't worry, I'm just going to share this one now. Okay, so this one I guess I have to do a different way. Just a second, sorry about this. Oh, now it's too big. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about is the idea of floor plans, and how we execute our floor plans is going to be a lot more about how we build the staff confidence. And we are hearing from a lot of operators that they are having challenges with servers being concerned about coming back to an environment where they're going to be touching dishes and talking to people from a very close distance. So as we get into that discussion, I just want to give you an idea of one of the things that we're thinking about, and many of you I'm sure have thought about this already. But imagine you have a big square room. We already know that you have to have 6 feet between tables and 6 feet between backs of chairs. One of the things that we've thought about is this diagram here. And I think it's something, it's very simplistic. I made it in 5 minutes, and I'm not a graphic designer. So, you know, forgive the artistic fail, is the idea that you would have a path that's clear of chairs and clear of people for your servers to serve from. This gives them access at the end of the table for serving, but it also makes sure that in most of their activities, they're not touching people as much as they normally would in a restaurant setting. So I think this is something really important to think of. And if you do have this sort of square layout, you can see that you could have the servers clearing from the front of the table, and then you could have a separate, every other path be a buster table area. So again, you've got a separation of your clean, dirty dishes coming into the room and your dirty dishes going out of the room. So there's a little bit of separation. So I just wanted you to look at this idea as a way, you have to adapt it for your own idea, and you could do something completely different. But this is something that just shows you that if you came into this restaurant and you saw, okay, there's a clear path for the servers, there's a clear path for the bussers, I think it's really, it builds that little bit of confidence that we need to feel like we've thought it through. We're making sure that there's less touch points. You can serve the food to the end of the table or clear them to the end of the table, and then you hand them back. So one idea to look at that would really be operational, to give you some ideas. And then just one more sort of similar diagram is if you have round tables. Again, you have that 6 feet that you do need to have, but look at how you could have the servers, oops, my arrows got moved over. You could take the server could serve directly to the empty space on each table. So you're looking at, they have a dedicated spot that they're going to, creates repeatability, and it also creates them the opportunity to stand and serve the guests without feeling like they're standing on top of the guests. One thing that we've talked a lot about is the idea that you also want to have the person stand a little bit away from the table and use their outstretched arms to put things down, kind of in the way of the old Parisian waiters, instead of the way that we would do it now, which is come up as our full selves, present ourselves as a full person and right in front of the table and do everything with our bodies and our torsos, just maybe get people to stand a little bit further back and extend with their hands. So those are the couple of the ideas that we had in terms of the floor plan. But why we want to bring this up is, and I think Ian, maybe you can weigh in on this quickly, and we'll just wrap up our part of this with a little discussion on the confidence that we need to build in our staff in real ways. A lot of our staff, I think it's 34% of all staff in restaurants in BC are young workers. And they are sort of in that 19 to 25 range. This may be their first job, but it's also their first real chaotic experience in their lives. And there's a lot of hesitancy around what's happening and how do they deal with it and who do they listen to, who are the experts. And we're finding a lot of servers and young workers are actually quite scared. So we want to be part of the solution, and we know that operators like you guys who are taking the time to be on a call are really taking their responsibility seriously. So what we want to think about in terms of getting that confidence from your servers as you go forward might be one-on-one conversations with people about how they're feeling and where they are in terms of their fear about COVID, and start collecting a group of questions that all of your staff have. And then if you need help from us to help answer those questions, send them over to us and we can help you. And then you could have a Zoom meeting like this for your team to orient them and answer their questions. So we think that could be something that we could help you with. You know, you can also make sure that when you're thinking about your teams that you have people set up in actual teams. So the morning shift is the same people every day. The evening shift is the same people every day. So that in terms of their staff connections, they're not having a rotating group of people in staff. Again, that will help with your confidence. Ian, do you want to talk a little about your conversation with Janet Austin and just how important this confidence piece is to younger workers?
Yeah, so the Lieutenant Governor, one of the concerns that she has was what Sam was just saying, is that she's really worried about youth 18 to 20. And I said to her, I don't know how we can weigh in on that. I think what we can do is just provide the sensitivity, no different than if you're managing a workplace and it's multicultural, and understanding the ways to effectively communicate with different cultures. It is different. And so it's the same way if we look at this in terms of our younger staff in restaurants who have been pretty sheltered in their lives, dealing with something that's really rocked their worlds. And I just think that, you know, it's really important to at least acknowledge that and be there and encourage them. I think, you know, as much as we have a huge responsibility to try to get the industry going, we also have to make sure the industry, our industry, is so pervasive when it comes to the influences that it has in society, that I just think that's a worthy cause. And I think for any business, bringing back youth workers, that's important. So that's where you know, the Lieutenant Governor was appreciative. I don't know what we can, you know, we'll probably write some general statements around that. There's a question, sorry, about do we know if guests in the same party will be 6 feet apart? Then if that was the case,
No.
no sense in going out. The answer is no. That distance is only between the other table, and so not the people you're with. We're assuming the people you're with are the people that you can trust. That's your little social nest. So that answer to that one is no.
And we also didn't, the distance between tables and chairs, not the distance around tables, because of course every business has different sizes of tables. In terms of sanitization stations, the idea is you want to have something at your front door, and you want to have something at your cash register if you have counter service. So that can be however you want it to be. If you have a hostess, it might be something that your hostess can offer. Just if you just buy the regular large Purell, welcome, and then they squirt the hands of the guests that want it. So we want to make sure that we're providing people that extra confidence that we're going to the next level. We are the hospitality industry, and we want to be hospitable. So we don't, Cameron, the answer is around 6 feet distancing, or 50% capacity with 6 feet distancing. We're waiting for the final answer. We have requested that it be simplified down to the physical distancing of 6 feet, but this one's another one of the ones that's outside of our control, and we're definitely gonna get the answer and share it as soon as we have it.
Sam, did you address, Sam, the decal?
No, I didn't talk about it.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly, as Sam touched on consumer confidence, what we're going to do, we put an application, we put a request in to partner with government on this. But what we wanted, and I'm just reading something from Victoria, where they are going to make sure that every business has to have a plan. So every business will have to have a WorkSafe plan, which is a response to their requirements. What we're looking at doing is a restaurant would go onto a website that we design. They would acknowledge their responsibilities, making sure they've done the different things that they have to do. And essentially that would give them a generic policy which has to address both the safety of their staff and the safety of their guests. And so that probably should be able to handle that side of it. Once they go through that, then we're going to send them a package, which in that package will be some downloadable signage that they can use in the restaurant. We may have floor stickers available at this time, and some reminders and protocols and lists to sort of help them through this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a decal they can put outside their business. We're not sure exactly what it says, but it will convey the thought that this restaurant is thoughtfully gone beyond its normal procedures in view of COVID to provide a safe environment for its employees and its guests. And we feel that's it's an important part of it, because just to open it as if nothing happened would be not right. And I think we have to address it. You know, the interesting thing about restaurants is that most of the things that they will be doing in this new world we're in are things they did before. Although there are going to be some changes with physical distancing, but essentially we're going to bring much more visibility to the sanitation, the efforts, and the things that restaurants do sort of behind the scenes. You're going to see now more in front of the house. So we'll let you know when we're ready to do that, but we're working quite quickly to get this package, because again, from a Board of Trade point of view, we have thousands of small businesses that just can't create policies and print things, and so we believe that we can help them greatly. And again, it's, as Sam said, it's just going to address the minimum standards, not the extra effort people want to go through. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, so I'm going to answer some of these questions. No, you don't need to have sanitizing things at tables, and the usual washrooms are fine. For washrooms, we recommend that urinals, if they're close together, you close every other urinal. And women's washrooms, maybe you put a sign that says only 3 people in the washroom at any given time, and then have the dots outside, just to give people a little more space. But I think it's going to become fairly standard practice that people are aware of space. So those dots on the ground will help you. And in terms of washrooms, we did have a question yesterday about sinks. I think that we're pretty good at adapting to move away to the sink that's furthest away from the other person that's in the bathroom. So I wouldn't worry about closing sinks. In terms of makeups of parties, it can be right now, as of the long weekend, she has set up to groups of 6. I suspect that is meant to be, whoever you feel comfortable being with in your group of 6. I think for the first phase, most people will only be going out with direct family or aunts and uncles or parents that are younger and feel comfortable. But there isn't a limitation on that. But my suspicion is that the comfort level of our guests is more with their immediate family and close friends than expanding too quickly to other people. I think once we get over the 6th level, there may be more larger groups that are sort of unrelated people. But we also do think that patios offer a real opportunity for this, because people really want to be outside with people because they have the confidence there. So picnic packs, if you have a park across the street with you, is a really good idea, because you could have more people getting together for kid birthday parties in a picnic outdoor situation, outdoor picnic tables outside of your business, a lot of real opportunities there. The other thing is that, just a reminder to everybody, the percentage of the business that takeout was before COVID-19 was growing, the growth was 20% year over year for takeout. So if you're not on the takeout train now, you definitely need to get on top of offering takeaway, because it does offer an opportunity not just to be on your patio, but maybe the park down the street or a party in a yard, those kinds of things. The restaurants that don't have patios going to be open, yes, they are. We don't know. We have heard that will be after the 19th. We need to have the WorkSafe rules in place first. We're supposed to get those today. But yes, you will be able to have dine-in as once they announce the WorkSafe rules, as long as you can follow those WorkSafe rules and abide by follow the physical distancing requirements. Yes, I know, Sue, I saw the log thing came up in Washington's reopen plan. If you're a dine-in restaurant and you have, you're already keeping people's name, the name of a person in the party and their phone number to text them to come back for a table, if I were you, I would be keeping that just as an extra safeguard and as a best practice, but it isn't going to be mandated by BC as far as we know. But it is something that is worth thinking about because it will give you extra confidence and give them extra confidence. How do you plan to deal with?
You want to deal with your reusable utensils?
Okay. I'm on the question above. So how do you deal with multiple people using the same touch points in the washroom? So washrooms, you need to have a posted schedule. Like imagine you go to IKEA and IKEA has the schedule that says we clean the bathroom every 30 minutes. You want to have something like that, either inside the bathroom or outside the bathroom, and you want to follow it. In China, restaurants changed to prepackaged disposable utensils. That is not going to be recommended in BC, but we do recommend that you do cutlery wraps instead of placing the cutlery on the table, so that when the guest comes into the restaurant, you are more likely to have that confidence. If you come to the table, there's nothing on the table, it's clearly been wiped, you sit down, people bring you your cutlery, and then they say, would you like water? And then they bring you the water glasses. Would you like wine? They bring you the wine glasses. So you want to do it. Everything is based on a service model. This is the new level of service, is going to be customizing what you get. In terms of menus, how to handle that, one thing that we want you to think about is if you are going to open in the short term, you may want to look at doing like a prefix or a dine-around style menu where they get to pick certain appetizers and put wine and beer or cocktail pairings on that one piece of paper, and have it be like this week's feature, next week's feature, and print them as you go and recycle them. That's going to make it easier in terms of less touches with a menu and a wine list, or a menu and a cocktail list. It also is going to reduce the number of groceries that you have to buy. And if you provide a really excellent experience with paired food and beverage, that's going to be what people are looking for. So thinking about having a menu that is a little bit less, but focuses more on the hospitality and the pairings, reducing the number of touches. What are your street closures to allow we have asked for as much. So the question on street closures is about the expansion of patios and outdoor space. We've definitely asked for this support from government, and all levels of government have started talking about it. So I think that it is on the way, as depending on your municipality, and Burnaby may have their own ideas, but it's definitely at the table and the discussion is happening. No tablecloths on tables. I think the thing about tablecloths is you could have them, but you definitely have to change them between every party. So you may want to not have them in this first phase. If your tables are nice enough to leave exposed, I would leave them exposed. But if you do have to have tablecloths, make sure you change them every time you have a new group coming in to your restaurant. Okay, so I don't know about this. We're on this next question about sterilization. The Ecolab and Diversity and these companies that offer us cleaning equipment and cleaning solutions definitely are doing their best to fill the supply chain with the best possible cleaners. All of our dishwashers are set to do sanitization as part of the process, and the chemicals are part of that. So I think work with your Cisco or your GFS or whoever you work with for supplies, but be confident that your dishwashers are doing the job that they're designed to do. The shift topic, what are the thoughts about volumes anticipated once restrictions begin to lift? Okay, so what we're talking about here, we're sort of hopeful of the idea that slow and steady wins the race. So I know from a business model, every one of you needs to be at 70 or 80% capacity to be successful, and that the idea of 50% or like Texas 30% is intimidating and horrible, and you know, hastening the decline. But we have to build. Part of this isn't just about the distance between the tables. It's about winning back our customers and getting them back into our businesses. I went to Canadian Tire 2 days ago because we needed light bulbs, because half the light bulbs in this house had burnt out. And I swear there were more people in Canadian Tire this week than there have been in the last 10 years of trips to Canadian Tire. It made me never want to go to Canadian Tire again, because I was panicked the entire time that people were too close to me. Why are they that close? Why is there somebody there? And we don't want to have that experience in restaurants. So if we can go with slow and steady rinse of race, build up your takeout business, use your patio, offer kits that people can take to a park down the street. Think about how you can use that outdoor space to build your confidence, have fewer people in your restaurant, send an e-news out to your distribution list of your guests that you keep in touch with, or put it on your social media to try and get people to come for lunch and dinner, not just everybody coming for dinner at 7 o'clock. get some people to come at 5 o'clock. Talk to people about how they can have a great experience in your restaurant by spreading it out over more meal parts of the day. We want to be creative, we want to be flexible, but we also want to have the right number of people in our places so that people have the confidence to come back. So think about all the ways that you can do that. And as they expand the number of people, just do it gently, and so that people are, as you can tell your guests are comfortable, then you're allowed, bring more people in. So just think about, and if you can, work with the municipality of Burnaby to get, if you're like a coffee shop and you could put 2 little tables out front with a couple of chairs where people could have their lunch sandwich outside, and that's something you've never done before, that would be something that maybe helps you just have a little bit more engagement with people. And then I also encourage you to have really good conversations with your staff about what they're thinking about. A lot of staff have been off work for 6 weeks. And if they're real professionals and they're really keen about their jobs, they may have ideas that you haven't thought of, that I haven't thought of, because they're sitting there, okay, how am I going to get my job back? How am I going to be better at my job after this COVID-19 period ends? So think about talking to your staff and getting them to bring you their innovations, because they really may have something none of us have thought of. And if they have thought of something awesome, please email me and tell me their awesome ideas, because everybody is looking for ideas.
Awesome. Well, I know we're at the time here. So Samantha, Ian, thank you so much. I'll let Paul Holden here wrap it up. Great question from the audience, and that was super informative. So we really appreciate you taking the time. And Paul, do you want to wrap us up here before we duck off?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks to both Ian and Samantha. That was really informative and just so impressive, the quality of the work that you've done on behalf of your members, which also you can see lots of templates in here that could be shared across other business sectors as well. And I think it's great that you've done this, and to see the way that you engaged your members in arriving at these solutions and ideas has been really excellent. So congratulations to Ian and Samantha on the work that you've done and the outputs from that work, and we'll all be looking forward, I guess, tomorrow to hear what comes out with regards to WorkSafe BC standards, etc. And looking forward to, after the long weekend, starting our journey on the road back. And I for one will be one of the first ones to be back in it. So looking forward to it. And thanks again, Ian and Samantha. And thanks to all the folks who joined us today. Some great questions. Thanks for your input. And we look forward to connecting with you all again before too long. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Sam. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.